Hello, everyone. Amanda Williams, MD, MPH, here with you today to talk about krill oil. This is an omega 3 fatty acid, and oftentimes people get slightly confused in terms of the difference between krill oil and fish oil. So, I want to talk a little bit about that. I also want to give you just some cool, fun facts about krill oil itself and why so many people have actually started to kind of gravitate towards utilizing krill oil as their preferred choice of omega 3s when it comes to supplementation. Well, one thing that we know for sure Americans need omega 3s. When we look at our society as a whole, we know that Americans are not getting enough omega 3s in terms of dietary intake on a regular basis. Now, when you look at people who follow a Mediterranean diet, for example, and they do a fatty acid analysis in the blood, what we recognize is that they have an omega 6 fatty acid to omega 3 fatty acid ratio of about 4 to 1 or 2 to 1, which is actually very, very good. So we know that the omega 6 fatty acids, which are also essential, are going to always outweigh because we just have much more high abundance of the omega 6s. However, when we get too much of those omega 6 fatty acids, there is a concern that this can actually drive up inflammation in the body. So we fast forward and we say, okay, well, we know in countries that adhere to a Mediterranean diet, their blood tests come back with that ratio of about 4 to 1 or 2 to 1. But in the US, when we look at fatty acid profiles, we are just horrible off the charts with omega 6. We have about 20 omega 6 to every one omega 3, which is why chronic disease states in this country run so rampant because we are walking around in this heightened state of inflammation at all times because we're just not getting those omega 3s from our diet, which is why supplementing with things such as fish oil and krill oil can be so incredibly beneficial. But at the end of the day, what's really the difference between the two? And this comes up often. Which one should I actually take? Well, there's a variety of different ways that we can look at this. Obviously, you can go ahead and you can take both. No harm in that. But we have to understand that omega 3s that are coming from fish oil have a very high amount of total omega 3s that's yielding. So that's the EPA and the DHA. So there's three different forms of omega 3s. Not to get too confusing here, but you have EPA, DHA, and then the plant based form that comes from things like flax that yields you ALA. So we know that krill oil and fish oil both yield us the EPA form and the DHA form, which is wonderful because we know that that's very beneficial for our brain, for our heart, for everything throughout the body. So, what's the main difference? Well, as I mentioned, fish oil has a higher amount. So, when you're taking fish oil, you will get a substantially higher amount of total EPA and total DHA as compared to taking krill oil. So, you may think, well, then why would I want to take krill oil? Because krill oil actually contains phospholipids, and those phospholipids that it contains is predominantly choline. So, when we talk about phosphatidylcholine, that's very, very beneficial when we think about brain health, when we think about liver health. That's another key and essential fatty acid that helps to make up the cellular membrane of our little neurons in our brain, as well as for all cells throughout the body. So, the fact that krill oil naturally has these phospholipids that are taken up by the red blood cell and then can traverse easily across that blood brain barrier make it ideal when we think about brain health. So we always want to make sure that we have enough fat in the brain. I always give the example of you're going to have two choices. You can be in the skinny brain line or the fat brain line. Well, this is the one time that we want to be in that fat brain line because we want to make sure that we maintain the structural integrity within the brain as we get older. So this is why krill oftentimes is touted as being kind of this brain power super boosting omega 3 fatty acid. Certainly the scientific research suggests that. Now, what else is super cool about krill oil is that it contains naturally occurring astaxanthin. And you may think to yourself, what's astaxanthin? Well, this is a powerful carotenoid. So it's an antioxidant and it falls into that category of carotenoids. So we obviously know that must be good for our eyes, correct? But it's also very good for our brain. So the fact that krill oil is providing us not only the EPA and the DHA, but also that phosphatidylcholine as well as astaxanthin really makes it this phenomenal choice when it comes to omega-3 supplementation. So what is it exactly about astaxanthin that makes it so unique? When we think about, I always give the example living down here in Florida, and people always talk about, the pink flamingos. Well, the reason why they actually do exist, these pink flamingos, is because what they're actually feeding on. So when we think about the different algae, and it's those carotenoids, that astaxanthin that provides that color. When you think about shrimp, for example, that coloring is coming from that astaxanthin. So we know that astaxanthin is a powerful carotenoid and yields this really potent amount of antioxidant benefit to fend off oxidative stress throughout the body. So when we take our capsules of krill oil, we're getting EPA and DHA, that omega 3. We're getting phospholipids, which is super wonderful as well. And we know that we need to have that phosphatidylcholine for the manufacturing of acetylcholine. So remember, acetylcholine is that primary neurotransmitter that really helps us with our cognition, so with our ability to generate memories as well as keep memories. So definitely acetylcholine is very important. And then we have the astaxanthin. So all of this in a simple capsule. Now, here's a really interesting study that was done well over a decade ago, and it was published in the Journal of the American College of Nutrition. And they took a group of folks who were suffering from arthritis. And we're talking arthritis in the hands, arthritis in the knees, and they said, let's do a randomized double blind placebo controlled trial. Why are we going to do this trial? We have a group of people who have arthritis, and we know that there's some type of common ground here when it comes to trying to drive down inflammation, and that omega 3s can certainly help do that. It offsets that inflammation that potentially that omega 6 drove up. So, in this setting, they took this group. One group was given placebo, the other group was given krill oil. In 7 days alone, their C reactive protein levels dropped by 19%. 19%. And at the end of 30 days, their C reactive protein levels had dropped by an average of 30%. Why does that matter? Because when we think about what C reactive protein is, this is looking for systemic inflammation. So it's not just cardiac specific, we're looking at inflammation throughout the body. And so we know if someone has arthritis, they've got inflammation. So this is one way that they were able to monitor this. They said, oh my goodness, we're giving these folks only 300 milligrams. 300 milligrams. The reason why I point that out is because the Invite Health krill oil, when you take 2 capsules, that's yielding you 1,000 milligrams. So this was the study, 300 milligrams, and in just 7 days, a 19% reduction in C reactive protein levels. It's amazing. So I oftentimes tell people, when we think about joint health, I always say, probably would be wise to sneak a little krill oil into your routine because it just seems that the krill oil, this form of that omega 3 fatty acid, really has a high affinity for targeting the joint spaces and easing inflammation as well as easing discomfort. And that was another interesting point of that study that was done was not only did they have this significant reduction in this marker for inflammation, but their perceived sense for pain actually came down. So they have this scale, it's called the WOMAC scale. And they were looking at how people responded. And they're like, you know what, I'm feeling much better. I'm taking this krill oil and I feel really good. So I think it's just remarkable all of the different ways in which krill oil can be beneficial. Obviously, we know when it comes to heart health, krill oil is going to be our friend. When we think about liver health, the fact that we have that phospholipid in there along with that astaxanthin, and then we think about brain health. So it's kind of this super omega 3 fatty acid. So I definitely encourage you to go to our website and check out our krill oil advanced. We source this. This is an Antarctic sourced krill, and it is really just a wonderful, wonderful formulation. Really, really clean. The capsule that we're using is Capsugel, and that's a South Carolina company. So it's just the way that we manufacture the krill, as well as the amount of krill that you're actually getting, as well as the amount of astaxanthin. When you look and see how much astaxanthin you're actually getting from our krill oil, it is really just amazing. So definitely go to the website, check that out. If you're not exactly sure as to how much krill you should be taking every day, what time of day you should be taking it, should you be taking both krill oil and fish oil, definitely reach out to one of our nutritional experts. That is what they are there to do, is to help you help yourself. And I will be back in a few more days to talk about more wonderful formulations available at Invite Health. Thank you.